back. I'm back because here we are, millennium time for them, but millennium time if you want to believe that. And it goes, well, first of all, let me say this. At the end of it, for those who wish to deal with health and references and want to make that segue from, you know, the pork fried rice and Mickey D's, I've put together these 2 folios, and it's donation. There's a suggested price for each, and we'll talk about it over there. But this is an extrapolation from my book that I'm writing called Neogenesis. And I call this particular extrapolation The Sacred Principles of Health, a discourse on the ways of intelligent eating. It's simply my knowledge and what I have learned from the hygienic scientific system of eating and the ways of being, and how to segue yourself out of the pollution that you're eating into a more vital and ital way of living. Here you have the breakdown of the different proteins and where you can find the so-called vitamins in all the foods. So they tell you that you're deficient in specific things, then these particular foods are broken down in such a way so you can know them. As far as the amino acids, how you can get them in the raw foods as well. They're all here. This would be like a little manual you could put on your fridge, and you'll know how to eat a little bit better. All right. The first thing we must realize is that disease is not bad. You have been hypnotized into believing that the fragmented purview of the medical church makes you believe that you're being attacked on all fronts by different types of bugs, germs, viruses that express themselves in the body as asthma, as fibroid tumors, as cancer. There is no such thing as disease. There is no such thing as asthma, as hepatitis. All these essentially are labels that the medical church has given to expressions of toxicosis in the body. That's all. And the place where the body chooses to express these symptoms are the places that the body chooses itself to express them. The bug does not force the body to express it at these points. The body chooses where it will express the symptoms of its cleansing. There are no systems in the body. There is no lymphatic system. There is no digestive system, and there is no respiratory system. This is the white man's fragmentary thinking, and this type of labeling only exists on paper. What they are defining is how one thing expresses itself into the many. They have ripped you off wholesale by making you believe that when your lungs are the chosen place for the expression of waste, that you somehow have asthma or bronchial problems. So now you have a specialist who is a priest, studied in the lungs and the respiratory tract, to give you the sacraments from the church based upon his learning, based upon his theocratic understanding of how the body temple works. But it's all a farce. It's all a hoax. There is only one thing operating as the many. There are not the many things put together haphazardly to try to find a happy medium called health. Doesn't work like that. The nature and purpose of disease is as follows. A, no other subject invites greater superstition and misinformation than disease. B, every fact you presently retain and refer to about disease is false. Why? Because we do not understand disease. 2, we perceive the weakness and the debility of disease as some form of dangerous, life-threatening condition. 3, we think we have to do something. So we seek treatments. We seek remedies. We seek potions. we seek vitamins, we seek herbs. How many people in here, truthful show of hands, takes the wood root tonic? I rest my case. Does anyone realize, and this is not to defer from what my brothers and sisters are doing, I have to tell the truth where the truth is. Does anyone realize what goes into the making of a tonic? See, all we got to do is hear that, hey, herbs. And the first thing we do is say, hey, it's all right because it's herbs. But I'm writing a book. And I know you're going to say, oh, all right, okay, another one? Yes. It's presently being written at this time. And it's called The Ebers Unveiled. I'm going to blow the lid off of why it is that we as Africans and the Kemetu, or the Kemites, or the Egyptians, had to stoop to these artificial means of numbing their bodies and poisoning their bodies because the whole atmosphere at the time was poisoned. A lot of brothers who study chem and teach chem don't talk about the great atomic war that befell our people when the Neteru went to war and decimated the planet, turned what was green forests in Kemetu into a desert. They don't talk about that. And the Ebers Papyrus speaks about diseases that only atomic radiation can inflict. Nobody is looking at the fact that a pristine people like the Kemetu or the Egyptians, who bathed 3 and 4 times a day, who ate the most vital food, raw food on the planet, all of a sudden began to come up with pustules, burns. The women began losing their children. Huge. They began bleeding with the menstrual cycles that they never did before. Why did this all of a sudden happen? Because a great cataclysm had taken place and the atmospheric conditions that was homeostatic, biostatic, were all destroyed. The atmosphere was destroyed. So that what would keep them healthy, the air, the fire, the water, the earth, everything that would keep them healthy began to degenerate. So the so-called Neteru began to institute what were therapeutic measures, things that they never knew. If you read the beginning of the Ebers Papyrus, the one that's the most common, you'll see that the person says, I am a priest of Ast, or Isis, and that he serves in a specific temple, which means that the Ebers Papyrus was written by someone who was given specific types of information of how to extract medicinals from specific things they ignored before. They knew all about it. They studied herpetology and the whole 9 yards, but they never had to deal with them as medicinals before. Only after the great conflict. And we're going to talk about that in the book. But before we get to that point, I'm going to break down what it is that I was inspired to understand and overstand about herbology. Back to the topic. Because we don't know the nature of disease, the primary danger in disease is not the disease itself, but the treatments that we take. The treatments that we take. Disease is body generated. It is body conducted. It is overseen by the body itself. Through the condition of disease, which is called by many various names, the body conducts a cleansing and reparative process upon itself. Disease is never, repeat, never, ever life-threatening. The only time disease becomes life-threatening is when man interferes with a divine process. Disease is a friend. Health and disease is the same thing. Disease is an expression of health. Without disease, You can keel over and drop dead at the first sign